Hello, welcome everyone to our next session. We are having a panel. Thank you, Neve, for all your hard work on the Guide to Social Enterprise. That was an incredible presentation. I'm so excited to dive into it and learn more. But first, we are going to spend the next 30 minutes talking about the future of social enterprise, what's happening now and what we hope to happen in the future. My name is Charlotte Lewthwaite. I'm the manager of community benefits and partnerships here at Bisocial Canada, and I'm joined by three members from the social enterprise community. And they're probably better at introducing themselves than me. So I'm going to hand it off to Jessica to introduce yourself, and we'll work across the panel.
Great. Thank you for having me here. I'm so excited. My name is Jessica Mulder. I've been working in the public library sector for the last 15 years, before that in arts administration. And I am here on behalf of FoodShare Toronto and to share some past experiences that I've had with setting up contracts with a social enterprise when it comes to food security initiatives.
Wonderful. Thanks, Jessica. And Tracy.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tracy Berry. I am the CEO and founder of Grow Women Leaders, where we specialize helping women, especially immigrants and by work, get hired and advance their career. So we do that through job matching, training, and ongoing career support. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Amazing. And our final panelist, Marc.
Hi, everyone. I am Marc from Building Up. We're a nonprofit social enterprise in Toronto that works in the construction industry. So we train and employ people with barriers to employment to get careers in construction, a sector that needs people and pays really well. And we use our own construction company as sort of a vehicle to get people experience, paid experience to learn and then get onto job sites.
Amazing. Okay, so as you can see, we've got quite a great selection of panelists today. So I'm really excited for our discussion. We are going to jump right into things. So the first discussion question I'm going to pose to the group is to kind of set a foundation for the rest of the panel. And why do you think social enterprise is important? And do you have any examples of the impact that your experience or your organization directly has created? I think I'm going to start, Jessica, hoping you can speak to some of the success that you've had lately in some of your efforts.
Sure. But first, if I can, I'll say a little bit about why I think social enterprise is important. I see social enterprise as part of a broader civic engagement piece, helping organizations and individuals transition to a mindset that views buying and hiring as more than just transactional activities, focusing on procurement as a tool for building healthy communities, and considering the economic, environmental, and social impacts of the purchases we make, something that is more and more needed given the climate crisis, as well as the increasingly polarized social and political landscape in our communities. To your question, an example of the impact that social enterprise has created for myself was that in a previous role, I gained experience on the demand side of the marketplace for social enterprise, which led me to then seek out opportunities to support social enterprise on the supply side of things, volunteering with FoodShare. Shout out to our executive director who's here today from FoodShare Toronto. FoodShare is a Toronto-based Canadian nonprofit that advocates for food justice by supporting community-based food initiatives and engages in ongoing advocacy and public education. I'm here today from FoodShare, where I sit on their board of directors and chair the organization's social enterprise committee. Something that I did, and this speaks to the impact part of your question, because of the domino effect of a positive experience with a social enterprise that I had in my professional life on the food security side of things. So in that previous role, my procurement efforts that came about by doing Bisocial Canada training, those efforts and my championing led to a 12-month pilot program that brought nutritious after-school snacks to teens in underprivileged neighborhoods across the city of Toronto, and supported a food bank's ability to expand their reach in 10 underserved neighborhoods in Toronto, increasing their service to school nutrition programs by 70% through a reduction of costs by 60 cents a serving because of the money that my organization was able to put into that pilot program. That pilot eventually turned into a $2.6 million contract, which covered a 3-year period after we were able to successfully show the social impact data that was collected by the 1-year pilot. So that's why I think social enterprise is important, and an example of the impact it's created in my own life.
It's so incredible to hear about the ways that you've been able to leverage existing spending, leverage these kind of existing systems, and align them with some of the overarching goals that you're trying to achieve and create that social impact. Speaking about operating in the marketplace and operating kind of outside of maybe the nonprofit sector, traditionally, Marc, do you want to speak to a little bit about Building Up's experience trying to trailblaze and navigate those paths? Marc, we're just going to need you to unmute yourself.
Hello?
Perfect.
Okay, good. Sorry about that. Yeah, and I think that kind of speaks to the initial question too of why I think it's important. I think we operate in the world of capitalism. I feel like everybody here probably is participating in the universe in that way. And, like the traditional sort of philanthropic and donations to run our organizations is a market that exists, but it's a really small part of the way that money moves. And I think, rather than a lot of how the challenges that our societies face are a byproduct of how the economy works and how capitalism works. And rather than just sort of participating on the outside of it, it's like, how do you use those same tools to do something positive? And I think that's why social enterprise is so important. It rather than just kind of participating with that small part of the economy that is donations and grants and philanthropy, it kind of takes into account the entire economy. Sort of an example of how that works in our organization at Building Up is about 3/4 of our revenue comes from selling construction and renovation services. There might be a set amount of money that's being given by the government every year to fund training programs, and that needs to be divvied up across all the provinces and all the different organizations that do great work in them. But also, every single company or individual that owns a building has some work to do on it. And each of those dollars that are invested in people's real estate is a dollar that could also not only get someone a new floor and a new kitchen cabinet or new HVAC system, but it could also use that work to create a career for somebody in an industry that really needs people. So over the past 6-7 years, we've done over $7 million of work for Toronto Community Housing, where they like to work with us because we do good work on their buildings, but because we employ Toronto housing residents to carry out those projects. And 25 cents of every dollar of that 7 million has been paid to Toronto housing residents as wages. And the wages aren't even really the main part of it. It's a catalyst for their careers that will then kind of launch into all the job opportunities that exist in the construction industry. And like a huge part of that investment for Toronto housing has been in its own right to kind of improve the energy efficiency of their buildings. So there's already a business case that they have to do these energy retrofits to help save money on their utilities and make their buildings more environmentally friendly and comfortable to live in. And that money is going to be spent. It's going to make money in savings, but why not use that investment to support the people living in those buildings? And I think social procurement, social enterprise is just an opportunity to be more intentional with money. And that's kind of what I think we're like.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think, and I think Tracy, you can jump in on this a bit, but not thinking of just profit as profit, but profit as a means to solve problems, as revenue as a means to solve problems. And, how do we use it? Like Marc was saying, as yes, there's employment, but it's a catalyst for impacts that continue on beyond just that initial employment opportunity.
Absolutely, absolutely. I totally agree to what Jessica and Marc already said. As I was discussing with Emma yesterday, I truly feel that social enterprise is a vehicle to do good, right? And I see that play out so well. Individual now that actually wants to make sure that the profits can actually be channeled into good use. Actually will always think of social enterprise. And here at Grow Women Leaders, that is what I thought about. As I said also yesterday when discussing with Emma was, though when I got here in Alberta, social enterprise, it was so hard really explaining what it was on the term many years ago, like almost like 7 years ago, 8 years ago. I always knew that for you to do so much good work in life, social enterprise was a way, because I saw that growing up in Africa. I saw that, part of it in Europe. So I wanted to make sure that I emulate that kind of business that give back to the community. So at Grow Women Leaders today, me being an immigrant and seeing the struggles that I've gone through, I knew that there should be a lot of work that needs to be done. So that was when I started Grow Women Leaders, and that is now what it is now, helping women, especially when they are skilled, get hired. And I also knew from the start that I wasn't going to be depending or maybe I knew there was going to be issues getting funding. I had to find a way to make money that I can, channel the profits towards supporting these women. So there's no limitation. And for the past 8 years, that is what we've been doing, learning to do business that supports society and the community supporting into it. And the result, the profit that we get goes towards supporting the women that we are supporting. As of today, we have thousands and thousands of women in our community that is benefiting from that simple initiative of social enterprise. And as you said, it's been amazing doing this, and the impact, it's hundreds of women that we support getting hired every year. And just to want to reiterate why it's important. It is important because the social enterprise can be a vehicle that every human can use to do good in the society.
Thanks so much, Tracy. Geez, yeah, that's it is a vehicle, right? And it's a vehicle that we all have access to be able to kind of bolster the mandates and purpose of our organizations. Tracy, we talked, previously when we were getting ready for this panel about some of the gaps in what this social enterprise movement is trying to achieve. And you talked a bit about how you saw a gap and you addressed it. Do you want to talk a little bit more about like what gaps are still existing in terms of social enterprise in Canada?
I think it's just the lack of education, I have to say. I feel that we still have to educate a lot of people. I saw what Marc was saying right now, which is a very cool initiative. But the gap that I see is people being educated on not just understanding what the concept of social enterprise is, and also how that individual can actually put their money to use. And I think yesterday I was also saying about I have a belief that it's possible for one person to make a difference, right? You can just wake up and say, you know what, whatever pressing issue that there is in the society, you want to make a difference. And I think this is where you think of social enterprise to say, hey, we made mention of the capitalist and all that, but in your own way, when you're starting a business, you know that the profit is going to be put to use, or you're going to be, using your idea of a business to actually make a platform or support a community that may not have voice, right? So, but when we talk about what is still missing, the gap that there is the education around social enterprise, and not just educating them about the concept itself, but also how individual too on their hands can be those that are taking matters into their hands to make a difference in the society. It's just intentionality. We talk about being intentional. Just like Marc right now, if Marc was to be in Edmonton, Alberta, I would definitely want to work with him, because I know for sure that when I work with him, the money that I pay to him is using more individuals that are finding their way into getting opportunity. That is exactly what we do at Grow Women Leaders. So, but we just have to do more. I think this is where Amazing by Social come in to start providing that education. But while we're providing for us that are actually doing the social enterprise, I think there should also be a component that focuses on individual, which are usually the customer, that take initiative into hands to say, let's support initiative, and that is built around social enterprise. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think education and awareness can mean a lot of things. Like when we talk about the guide to social enterprise that we were just speaking to in the previous session, it's complicated running a social enterprise, because you are both running an organization with a mission and looking to create social impact, but you're also trying to run good business. And that can come with its challenges and its complexities. So I think, Jessica, do you want to speak to, I think you've got a really interesting experience about what that looks like in practice and in implementation.
Yeah, sure. So in answer to the question about gaps in the sector, sometimes there's an expectation for social enterprises to jump at every opportunity and grow immediately, with spurts of growth tied to temporary opportunities. And we definitely saw this at FoodShare during the COVID-19 pandemic, when funding and demand for food access grew rapidly. So one of the gaps that I see in the sector relates to sustained funding streams and strategies that bypass the need for social enterprises to contract once temporary opportunities close.
Absolutely. I think, funding with a long-term plan, sustained funding with a plan to what happens after COVID-19, right? And we have this influx of funding. What happens and how can we build the infrastructure of our social enterprises to outlast these opportunities that are often in such high demand for us to respond to, because our communities are in need, right? And because we have these social mandates and purposes, we are the first ones to jump, because we are the best ones to serve our communities. Marc, I feel like I would love to hear from you to talk about, how our social enterprises, looking to respond to these gaps and pivot and adapt.
Yeah, I mean, I think like a huge part of kind of the social enterprise approach to social work is to have sort of an entrepreneurial approach to the work. And I think, that typically is more of a flexible approach, and one that is like kind of requires us as operators of social enterprises to just pivot constantly, and to find work, to realize when our work is going to. I think like any business has waves of the business, and they, the good ones are the ones that can kind of see it coming and find another opportunity and find another way to get their work done. And I think that's true for social enterprises as well. And I think in a lot of ways, the future of the social enterprise sector is sort of in the hands of social enterprises, and we need to kind of rise to the challenge of just like, how do we give people, how do we put people in a position where it's undeniable, where they need to work with us because it's the best situation for them. And then like I think kind of what that also comes along with is government seeing the value of social enterprise, because in the same way I'm saying we need to make it undeniable, I think once it becomes undeniable, the market needs to respond. And I think part of the market for this kind of work is government. And, you know, we work our social enterprise as like, we don't run a social enterprise to make money for another nonprofit that's doing something else. We run our social enterprise because we believe that this is the best way to train people in construction, giving them real experience on real job sites, giving them paid training where maybe they couldn't go into education before because they had financial responsibilities. Well, let's take that away. Let's give you a paid opportunity to learn in a supportive environment. And I think that the outcomes of that have proven that this approach to construction training for people with barriers to employment is the best way to transition people into this industry. And you know, what I'd love to see government do over time is create funding streams dedicated to employment social enterprises. You know, that's the world I know. Employment social enterprises that are there, you know, where most people employ people to run their business. Social enterprises that run their business to train and employ people. And I think that is the quickest way for government to get good value out of their money they're investing in workforce development. And I think the financial case to government is there, not only just comparing it to non-social enterprise training, but comparing it to the costs of not doing anything, and you know, taking people that have been on social assistance in and out of the criminal justice system, in and out of different mental health supports, physical health supports, kids in welfare system. Like the cost savings to government to supporting this work are massive. And you know, I think ultimately there'll be a time when, in comparing a social enterprise's quote to a non-social enterprise, government's not just comparing the price of the contract and lining up all the costs, but lining up all the value of that work too. So
yeah, I think you know, I think there is a gap in sustained funding that builds capacity, long-term capacity for social enterprises, and is not just, you know, a flashing blip because of a circumstantial situation. But how is this funding valuing what social enterprises are doing, designed for social enterprises, and contributing to building these organizations so that they are sustained long term, so that those pipelines for employment, those pipelines for community programs are able to build themselves out and grow in a sustained way, and not just contract and expand with the needs of the government. Okay, you know, a final question. I think we have been talking about the future quite a bit, but what do you see the next 10 years looking like for social enterprise? What does social enterprise forward look like for the ecosystem in general and for your specific organization? Jessica, do you want to take a stab at looking into the crystal ball?
Sure, I can tell you what I'd like to see happen. As somebody who's worked in a public sector organization, I'm going to build on what Tracy was saying about that lack of education piece, and saying moving forward, I think that public sector organizations have a moral responsibility to make training programs around developing social procurement policies accessible and available to their employees, just to raise awareness about the benefits of including social procurement language in government RFPs to help give social enterprise a leg up when competing with traditional nonprofit businesses in the market.
Yeah, that would be, I would love to see that. And we are working our hardest to get that as common practice. Tracy, what does your crystal ball look like?
Crystal ball, I will say that I feel, based on the work that we've done at Grow and still doing, the future of businesses is social enterprise. You know, talking about, you know, automation and technology. As I always tell everyone that cares to know, learn about social enterprise, I tell them that, the way automation is taking over job right now, you can count on a social enterprise to be business that have souls, right? So just according to what every of my other panelists have talked about, the government's looking towards this being a way to retain for individual to retain employment, and actually, investing in it is very crucial, right? And I also want to say, with the hundreds and thousands of women that we have in our community, something that we deliver first that shows instantly is hope, right? So when women come to Grow Women Leaders and just come to the space and see what we are doing, they instantly have that hope to say, you know what, I can do it, right? And then that now kind of now trickle down into them building, confidence to say, I want to start focusing. I will tell you for sure that it's only social enterprises that actually allows that, for that to be that way, right? So the future is social enterprise. That's because automation and technology, with the way it's, taking over jobs, I can guarantee that, social entrepreneurs, ones that actually knows how to run businesses, will be the one helping the economy retain jobs. So I really look forward to it, because it's going to be beautiful. It's going to be well talked about. People are going to be well educated. People want to put their money towards good use. This is when they're going to be thinking social enterprise. And when all hopes are lost, people will have confidence in social enterprises.
Wow, hope. Yeah, I would say that is the one good and service that all social enterprises are providing across our different offerings and mandates. Marc, I guess we'll end with you for building up, for your community. What does the next 10 years look like?
I hope it looks like a real explosion. And I think a real way to get there is for us to support each other. Like the first contract Building Up ever got was from a nonprofit housing provider. The first house Building Up ever renovated was from a charity that was looking to do something different. Our some of our largest vendors are other social enterprises that we're hiring with the money that we're given through our contracts. I think we need to get better at making it easy for people to hire social enterprise, and that means delivering better service. And we can kind of work out the kinks, working on each other's jobs and giving each other an opportunity. So I think we really need to support each other to put sort of the broader public in a position to know that there's a track record of success there. I'd love to see all affordable housing built by social enterprises. And I think this sort of carved out government support for social enterprise is something that's really important for the sector to grow into these opportunities that exist as well.
Thanks, Marc. Okay, well, thank you everyone for sharing your experiences, your learnings, your hope. We are going to go into 12-minute table discussions now. There's going to be some prompts. They're just suggested prompts in the chat. But I also implore you to, pull things from this session and the previous session and bring them to your tables for discussion. So thank you, Marc, Tracy, Jessica. I know this isn't the last time we'll be having these conversations, but I really appreciate you taking time to bring yourselves to this space and share with our community.
Thank you.